Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Martin Willis, your host, and just got back this morning from Sedona, Arizona, and the Skyfire Summit with Travis Walton. Had a wonderful time out there. What beautiful scenery it was, and I got two really good recorded interviews. You'll find them very enjoyable. One is coming up this Thursday with Stacy Wright on basically Phoenix and the Arizona area UFOs. Nice conversation. That's Thursday at 8 p.m. And then next Tuesday, I have a wonderful recording with Don Schmitt. And he was mentored by J. Allen Hynek. And so we're going to be talking all about that. And it's a really good conversation. Best one I ever had with Don Schmitt. And that is next Tuesday. It'll be here. It's not live. Thursday will not be live. However, I will be introducing the show and I will be in the chat and also saying goodbye to everyone when I leave. So just remember, coming up, we have Stacy Wright on Thursday, 8 p.m. and next Tuesday, a week from tonight, Don Schmitt at 9 p.m. So our guest tonight, I met Mitch Randall out in Contact in the Desert, and I did a show with him just on AI only, artificial intelligence. He doesn't like to call it artificial. I think he had another word for it. I might ask him about that because I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about that. And one of the thoughts that I had when I was out in Sedona, I watched a film by Ron James. And now it's that is not going to be out for a while. We saw it sort of complete, it was a rough cut, I guess you would call it, of the movie. Very good movie. I'm going to be talking to him when that is out. But he introduced AI into this movie, Accidental Truths, and number 2, that is. And I thought he made a lot of sense. And the thought occurred to me, we're progressing so quickly right now. Can you imagine if a society had an intelligent society had AI for say 1,000 years? I mean, you can only imagine what that could mean. And when artificial intelligence is building itself and how, it'll just pyramid up to something, who knows? And whatever it is, I'm sure we'll be traveling the stars, I think. Anyway, Mitch Randall was on the show months ago about AI, and he has a wonderful background. We're going to be talking about that. Just so everyone knows, the blog this week by Charles Lear is Encounters on the Roads of Spain, and it talks about a 1990s encounter and a lot more. So check out the blog at podcastufo.com. And thank you all for being here. Thanks for those who have supported the show. And it was really nice to be in Sedona, and 3 people actually came there, one from Buffalo, New York, just to meet and hang out. There was Matt, there was Ron, and Joel. I believe I have all their names. It was great to meet you all and hang out with you. So, and I do believe a lot of people at the conference said they'll be listening. So a shout out to you as well if you are new to the show. Mitch, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yes, and I thought we really had we had a wonderful conversation about AI out there. I mean, it's sort of it can be sort of depressing because it's kind of scary. It's an unknown, and this is like a never-ending technology. And I like the term. This could be our last invention, and that sounds like a loaded sentence. But in a way, it could be, because AI could be doing all the inventing from now on. It's kind of crazy. But, this show is not really about AI, but I'm sure we'll be talking about it. But we're going to be talking about SkyWatch. And this is something you and I never discussed. Of course, you're at a UFO conference, and you're going to be talking about that. But let's wind all the way back. And before even this idea, what was your interest in UFOs to begin with?
I was probably influenced by my big brother, who was always into UFOs. So I kind of followed his tracks. Like, I didn't, there was a time back in the 70s when it was, really you had to be a flake to believe in them, right? And then I remember there's an Omni magazine article about UFOs. Like, what's that doing there? That was about the time I got into it. So it was way back in the 70s, and I'll tell you it's actually hasn't really changed much at all, because it's still this, like excitement and then nothing, and then excitement, and it's been doing that for decades.
Yeah.
And then I got pulled into it again with Grusch giving that testimony. I thought, this is it. It's coming out. Yeah. The toothpaste is squirted out all over. No. Yeah. Then I figured out about that toothpaste. I don't want to get off track with so many things, but they always say that the toothpaste came out of the tube.
Can't go back in. Yeah.
They just let the toothpaste dry up. That's all. There's toothpaste all over. So.
Yeah, this conference that I was at last weekend, there was a lot of talk about, the different ideas that people have on disclosure. And that's really what it is. We all have our different thoughts on what disclosure is. And, and someone, one person said, oh, it's here, and the UFO community doesn't know when to say yes. And I kind of resented that remark, because it's not us that need to be convinced in the community. I don't think it's like admittance of the governments and all that, maybe. And I don't even know how much that will push that forward. Well,
I have a lot to say about that, because that's actually part of my instrument design, because I feel that society is not going to, there's so many aspects. I'm trying to put it all into a coherent sentence, but society is not going to jump on board. They're really waiting for the president to stand up and say, UFOs are real. That's what they want. Because people don't want to take a bunch of disparate information and sort through it all and come up with a conclusion. So this idea that, if there's going to be disclosure, somehow it has to come through some kind of official channel. That's a real thing. And I think you have to take that into account. If you're going to push disclosure, it can't be, some scientific group off in the corner says UFOs are real. That's not enough, because if it, for example, if it doesn't end up in the New York Times in a definitive way, like if it's in the New York Times and it says, well, this group says yes, but this group says no, that's not disclosure. It's got to be absolutely, spoon-fed to everybody. Then that's disclosure. So that's, I'll talk about that more as we get into it, but that's, in my opinion, part of the instrument design that has to be made in order for citizen science to have an effect on this.
I guess that we get the citizen science, as you say, involved. But I've said this a number of times, and it's just my opinion, that I don't think it really matters who's in office at the time. If that person in office, Democratic, Republican, whoever, says, we have extraterrestrial life is visiting us, or whatever it is, or we found it for sure, it's 100%. There's going to still be a lot of people that are not going to believe that person in office. But if science, it would have to be like a whole group, a whole mass joining in on it before, unless, what do they say, catastrophic disclosure, like they all come in like Independence Day all over the world, that type of thing. But so I don't know. I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, I really do think I know what you're saying. Of course, a lot of people don't believe what the president says, no matter which party. There's always the people who don't believe it. But I think you're in a different zone. I think the zone that we want is when the president says it, because that means it's been through a bunch of filters and it's bubbled up to the point where it's gotten to that level. And I think people really do listen to the president. There's a lot of us that follow closely that know whether we should be listening to the president or not, but there's a whole bunch of people that listen to the president.
Yeah. So your brother sort of got you in. You mentioned the Omni magazine. I actually remember that. My friend's family used to get that. And I remember being a kid and seeing that magazine. And, I mentioned that to my friend who I'm still in touch with, a childhood friend. He didn't remember it, but because I told him, I broke the news to him. Look, I do a show on UFOs, and he's actually watched a couple of them. He's not picking on me too bad. He likes to pick on me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but yeah, I remember that. And so you yourself have never had witnessed a UFO, though, correct? Because I saw.
That's the crazy thing. Like, went to Contact in the Desert, and that has so many people that, I mean, I think I'm maybe the only one that goes there who hasn't seen something.
Oh no, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. And you look at Steve, is it Steve? No, what's his name? Bassett. Who am I thinking of?
Steve Bassett. Yeah.
He's never seen a UFO. Stanton Friedman, one of the greatest researchers ever, never saw a UFO.
Yeah.
So there's a number of them, and they're not exactly a unicorn. There's probably a lot of people that think they saw something and still go there because it got their curiosity up, and it may not be
So for me, like, I went through that roller coaster for decades, and sometimes you're really excited about it because it's coming out, and then it goes dead, and then you're like, why would I even care about this subject? Like, what's going on with it? I mean, you just go through these really deep and high peaks, and for me, I was always looking for, because I'm background is science, I'm technical, and I can look at a video and I can tell whether, not that it's true or not, but I can tell whether it means anything or not, because so many videos of just a dot, and you can't tell if it's the camera moving or the dot moving. It's meaningless. There's a lot of stuff like that, or just a dot, could be any kind of light. And I've always been looking for something that's, I would think, okay, nothing that's human made can do that. And there's really very little like that. There's actually a couple videos like that. Well, for one of them was I don't know if you remember the Mexican UFO video. It's a UFO that was like wobbling and it could see it clearly, and then it went behind a building. It came out over the top.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if that's real. I'm not sure if that's real. I've heard controversy about that.
Right. Well, for me, that was like super interesting. I actually communicated a little bit with that famous video guy. I can't remember his name right now.
You're not talking about in Mexico, are you?
No. The guy that
Bruce Maccabee.
That's it. Yeah, I talked with him a little bit to kind of go through that, but anyway, I think eventually I figured out that's not real. Actually, this was more recently. I actually froze. If I learned this technique where if you can isolate or stabilize the thing you're looking at, you can tell a lot because you can see what's going on with the background. So a lot of times when people do they superimpose a fake UFO onto a video, it's not perfect. They'll get something mixed up, and the main thing is you have to get the stabilization right, because and what I noticed, and when I did that, is I noticed that the UFO, I had it stabilized, but then you'd see the background do things that it shouldn't do. So I didn't explain that very good, but I convinced myself.
No, I get exactly what you're saying. I know when I first started looking into this topic, there was UFOs over Tahiti, I believe, and it just crazy, went right over palm trees, and that video was so amazing, and it was like at the time it had like a million views.
Oh, I know
and that's CGI. These people analyzed it enough to figure out that it was CGI, and that was early CGI.
Yeah. So well, the palm trees were all identical.
Oh, is that what it was? Yeah.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, now we're in trouble because you can create anything, and anything can be created. So
video evidence, right, obviously took a big hit right now because you can create anything. So you have to be so careful now with any video evidence. But there was another, I was going to say, there was a guy in Florida. It was around the Gulf Breeze time. And the guy in Florida has what I consider, I mean, I never heard anybody debunk it, and I can't debunk it. But he's got his video camera trained on a UFO, and then it shoots off. And so that's really cool video. And I think, wow, that's one of my favorites. But what I was going to say is, for decades, I've been looking for that smoking gun evidence that with my own eyes looks to me like it can't be fake and it can't be a human, you know? So,
Mm.
and then at some point, you know, after the 2017 or 2019, whenever Fravor came out with this sighting of the Tic Tac thing,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
you know, at some point I thought, you know, I've been watching this for 40 years, however many years it is, right? And there's so many credible people. And how could anybody be more credible than David Fravor? And he saw it with his own eyes, and he saw it doing those, you know, non-human technology kind of motions, right? And so I just thought, why am I waiting for the smoking gun? You know, I don't care. I don't care if I'm wrong. It looks to me, my best guess is that this is real. That's what I would say. So I finally decided, like, okay, I'm on that side. And so after decades of sitting on that fence, I kind of jumped over. And as soon as I jumped over, something really crazy happened I didn't expect. But when you're sitting on the fence, you're trying to your real focus is this real or is this not real? When you jump over the fence and you think this is real, that's when you realize every theory that is so wild, every ridiculous theory could now be true. And that's sort of shocked me, because you can't really contemplate that or believe that or really buy into that if you're sitting on the fence. You have to jump over the fence and land on the other side before you can really feel that.
Yeah, you know, I felt kind of the same when I first got into this. Now, I did have a UFO sighting, and I'm only saying that because that kind of already started me in the door with, you know, this is real type of thing, because what I saw, I can't figure, even today, it doesn't seem like anything that would be our technology in any type of way. But I felt that same way about the abductees and, you know, experiencers, as they're called today. You know, like I was having a really, really hard time with that. And then I started, you know, thinking more about it. And I totally believe Travis Walton's story, for one. And, you know, and I wanted to make a point this weekend when I was talking about Travis Walton. And that is that if, let's just say that you or I, or I'm just going to put myself there. I'm going to fake a story that, you know, I was gone for 5 days and, you know, and all this happened. You would make it much more simple than his. You know, his is very, very complicated. And I listened to on Eyes on Cinema, which is a great YouTube channel. I listened to his original, very first interview. And his story has remained exactly the same. There's not one iota of difference today than it was back then of what happened to him. You know, and you know, I've tried to like ask him really interesting questions. Do you remember using the bathroom? You know, you know, because he was gone 5 days. What did you eat? Were there any smells? But he always says it was really, really hard to breathe, which makes sense. You know, which does make sense. And then, you know, you know, and then the beings that came that looked like us. You know, I mean, you just can't, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Things don't make any sense and are complicated. Like he walks out in this big hangar and, you know, he sees another room, he goes into it, and there's other beings. They don't have a fishbowl helmet on, and they look, you know, very attractive humans. That's what they look like to him. And they don't talk. He's talking to them. They're not communicating with him. You know, put a mask on him, he's out. And that's the last he remembers on the ship. You know, that type of thing. All I'm getting at is, you know, when you take that leap or whatever, I'm not necessarily saying that everyone that says they're an experiencer really did experience. I mean, they experienced something, obviously, but there are cases like his that stand out to me, and the Allagash incident and Pascagoula incident. You know, those are ones that really, really stand out. I wanted to say hi to everyone and chat. Thank you all for being here. And good to see you all. And, you know, if you have questions as we go along, just please, you know, put them in all caps. So you have this interest, and you have you worked for you did some work with NASA and then NOAA, all these different organizations through radar or things that you built, or can you just fill us in a little?
I started working at the National Center for Atmospheric Research, which is here in Boulder, Colorado. And it's, you know, we make weather research radars for weather research. So they're high quality scientific grade research weather radars, and some of them, 45-foot dish. Some of them are, a 6-foot dish. And also did lidars, which is laser radar, same thing, looking for water vapor in that case. But some of the technologies I worked on went into NASA things. I worked with the NOAA groups to do some of their research on the P3s that go to the hurricanes. I worked at NIST as well. So there's a lot of government labs around here, and I've kind of been around. So
yeah. And so how did you all of a sudden get this idea? How did it come to you that if we set up basically a nationwide network of passive radar, and please explain to us what passive radar compared to direct radar, or what's the other radar?
Active.
Active radar, that's it. Yeah. So what are the different?
Active radar, which is what we mostly do at the National Center for Atmospheric Research, but we do have passive radars there too. But an active radar is what you normally think of a radar. It's a dish with a very narrow beam. It transmits a pulse, high energy pulse, goes out and hits an airplane or something and comes back a little bit later, and you receive that echo. That's what you call active radar. So passive radar is more or less the same thing, except for you're not transmitting. You're using somebody else's transmitter who either transmitted on purpose for your purpose, or maybe they didn't. Maybe it's an FM radio station. Maybe it's a digital TV radio station. And you can still use, somebody's transmitting energy out there, and that energy is bouncing off objects that are in the sky. And so you can use a passive receiver. It's a receiver only, and you can actually detect that echo. So they've been using this since the 30s. In the 30s, they had to detect England was using these receivers. They had a receiver that was pointing out over the channel where the German airplanes might be coming in, where the antennas were pointed in such a way they couldn't pick up BBC. But if an airplane got in there, it would reflect this BBC signal, and they could pick it up, and they knew there was an airplane coming their way. So they were doing this in the 30s. So, it's not a new idea, but, it's a lot more sophisticated nowadays, because we can use correlation techniques to not only figure out the presence of that signal, but get the time delay. So the time delay you can do by grabbing a sample of the direct signal and comparing it to the echo, and you can measure that delay. And the delay is, the path length of the signal going out to the object and coming back. So it's just like in active radar, where you're measuring that time delay, and that tells you the distance. Same thing with passive radar too.
Now, not a lot, but a number of times I've heard over the years that a UFO doesn't show up on radar. I don't know if it has some type of stealth technology or whatever it is. That would be discouraging if this all gets set in place, and then, but a lot of them are seen on radar. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Jack Bushong case, the weather case in Michigan in 1994.
Not by name. I'm not
okay,
sure.
Jack Bushong, he was a weather person, and working with weather radar and looking at something that ascended instantly to 5,000 feet and then up to 10,000 feet, and was all over Lake Michigan. I believe it was Lake Michigan. But I'll send you that information, because I just think for your own interest, you may really want to take a look at that one in particular. But so we have a couple of questions in here. Let me just pop them up, and we'll get through them real quickly. Are you part of MUPA's study, MUPAS study? Do you know what that is? If you don't know what that is, you're not part of it.
No, I'm not. Don't know.
Okay. All right. So that answers that. Here's another one here. Are you incorporating the information you get with passive RF radar data with UFO hunting? Yes, that's what this is all about, right? Basically.
It is, but I mean, we're not quite there yet. So,
yeah, I know. Yeah, we'll go as we go along here. Yes.
I mean, yeah, that's what this is for. The whole point of it. So
yeah,
the real question is, are we integrating other data? That's because our data that we collect is for UFOs. That's the whole point.
And how exactly would this network? I know you have a plan of, like, if you had so many units throughout, say, for instance, throughout the United States in certain areas. Can you kind of explain how that would work?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it would help if I back up a little bit and kind of paint a bigger picture, and then
Sure.
we can drill down a little bit. But
Yeah,
just,
that makes
just for,
sense. Yep.
historically, it was about 2000 or so, I came across Peter Davenport's paper. Peter Davenport is the director of the National UFO Reporting Center, and he published a paper, I think it was 95.
Yeah,
So
someone just wrote about that right in chat here. Yes.
yeah. So it
Mhm.
came out, I didn't see it until about 2000. It said, hey, why don't we use passive radar for UFO detection? Well, I had just built a bunch of passive radar receivers for weather and knew
Mhm.
everything about it. So I contacted Peter and said, I can help you out here. Fast forward, it always turned out that all these things are hobby projects, and do I have time to work on it? It's always a question. I would love to work on it, but I have a full-time job. So what do you do? So around, I don't know, it was like 2018 or so, I realized, hey, wait a minute, they've come out with these digital, software-defined radios, just a little dongle that costs $25 that you can plug into your computer, and all of a sudden you have a receiver that you can tune to any channel. And I thought, well, this is great because, the big, a really annoying part of making a passive radar is you have to make the receiver. That's kind of what it is, a receiver. Here, you already have the receiver. Now it's just the software that processes it. So I started messing around with passive radar. Then I contacted Peter Davenport again, and, kept up with him about this new technology, and I'm playing with it, et cetera, et cetera. And then, I'll get the dates wrong, but was it 2021 where Avi Loeb announced the start of the Galileo Project? And I remember reading about it. I remember the plan, because I saw the plan was he wanted to get these half meter telescopes, 100 of them, or 50, I think 50, 100, I don't know, and put them all around the country. I looked, they were $1 million a piece. So I thought, okay, $50 million, got it. And they're going to look for UFOs. And the first thing I thought is, you can't really find a UFO with a telescope. That doesn't work. Telescope has this super narrow, range field of view that you're not going to detect a UFO. If you knew where one was, you could point at it, but you're not going to detect. So I thought, that group needs me. So I contacted Avi Loeb, and by the way, he's infamous or famous for, he's really good at replying to emails. You can't believe it.
Yes.
So within 15 minutes, he had replied to me like, oh, that's interesting. Because I said, you might need a passive radar to tell you where to point your telescopes, So then took me a little while to kind of convince the Galileo Project that I should be a team member. And I got on and I started to develop the, prototype. And I felt, even though it's still a hobby project, a little bit more motivated, because I'm working with a team of this is a really impressive team. Their project is full of really top-notch scientists that have really great personalities and everything. It's like a really nice group. And, I work with them and I did develop the first prototype. And by the way, when I got the first prototype to work, it kind of blew my mind because I had worked on passive radar for weather research, but I had never worked on it for, point target detection. And when I got my first image, and this is really cool, this passive radar, because, FM, I'm using FM radios as they call the transmitter of opportunity. So I'm taking advantage of FM transmitters that are around that they're really actually transmitting a tremendous amount of power, like 100,000 watts equivalent power they're transmitting in all directions.
Wow.
So, I'm used to, when you have a weather radar, you're transmitting a beam, a pencil beam, kind of just like a flashlight beam, right? It's just in one direction. But here it's transmitting in all directions. And then I'm using an antenna that's also omnidirectional that I'm picking up in all directions. So when I get the receiver signal, the echoes, I'm actually seeing everything that's in the sky within like 100-mile radius. And so my first time I saw detections, I saw like 50 things. I'm like, whoa. So it's really incredible what you can do. All it is a radar receiver, but then some software on the back end to process it and figure out the correlations and the distances. So
now, how do you weed out like a bird, or how do you weed out things, planes, birds, and other things that you typically can see in the sky?
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of things you have to do to the data to kind of clean it up like that. A big thing you can do, the number one thing we would do if we were installing this is you also have an ADS-B receiver. So if no one's heard of ADS-B, all airplanes now, and more, it's may become a standard that's required, but it's pretty much 95% of all aircraft have a transponder, and they're constantly sending out their position and their velocity, as measured by GPS. So really accurate measure of their position and velocity. And so you can find out which dot corresponds to which airplane like instantly and cancel out 95% of all airplanes.
I see.
And then you're left with, birds are kind of easy to cancel out because you can't really see them after a couple kilometers. After 10 kilometers, you're not seeing any birds because they're just too small. And, there's a lot of things like that where even just the ADS-B receiver would pretty much give you a blank display except UFOs. So I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you're off to a good start. That's what I'm saying. But let me just go on a little bit to kind of paint the big picture, and we can dive into some questions. But I just want to say that the Galileo Project didn't have the exact same direction as I do. They have their idea is to make a high quality, station, multi-instrument station. And then if an object goes over that, they can measure everything about it. Like they have emission detectors, they have particle detectors, they have, optical telescopes, they have this radar. They have all these things that would measure it all at once and get all these parameters on it. To me, I have this experience with the storm chasing radar trucks. Are you aware of those?
Yes.
You might have seen them on TV, right? There's a radar, a weather radar on a truck. And the point of them is they want to study tornadoes. We've always, in weather research, wanted to study tornadoes, but they never come by our big 30-foot dish systems that are on a concrete pad, right? How often does a tornado fly by? So, in terms of instrument design, we decided, well, we got to take the instrument to the tornado. That's how you're going to get tornado data. So we made a mobile truck that did that. So that is burnt into my memory or into my, DNA that's part of instrument design. You don't want to just have a good quality instrument, but you need to get data. And who cares if you have a good instrument if it never sees a UFO? And I've never seen one. So what are the chances of one person, or one fixed site having a UFO fly over it? I don't know.
That's always been the problem. That's why science hasn't really taken this seriously in a long time, because it's a fleeting situation. It's not like something repeatable. So,
I have so much to say about that. In fact, that's such a stumbling block for science. Science has a real problem with experiments that aren't repeatable, right? I think I tweeted a thing where it said, UFO witness, I saw a UFO, and the scientist, can you repeat it? Witness, no. Scientist, okay, bye. What do you do? But anyway, so my thought was, this needs to be all over the country, because wherever a UFO is, I want to have this radar receiving it. And since it's just a receiver, but then with sophisticated software, no one cares if the software is sophisticated, because that doesn't cost anything, right? And the receiver is not that costly either. So this could be something that you could duplicate and put all over the place. But then you have a problem, you don't want to staff that with scientists. That's just impractical to have those all over the country and have a Galileo Project scientist on each one. There's just not enough people to do that. So it has to be something more plug and play, more like a consumer product. So that's where this kind of whole thing birthed from. It's like, wow, passive radar is incredible, but also, let's get it everywhere so that our statistics get up. And then, since we have it everywhere, it's got to be citizen science. So you can see the logic progression there. It seems like a pretty reasonable direction to go.
Before we go much further than that, when you say plug and play, is there an aspect of whatever the equipment is out of doors, like so it can be out in the open and catch something, or is this something internal in a home?
I mean, it would be like a modem kind of a thing that's in your home, but there would be a cord that goes out to some kind of antenna on the roof.
I see. Okay. And that was a question here. That was, so what type of antenna and radius emitter are you using for the passive radar? That's a question.
Yeah, well, one
Kind of
thing is,
that fits.
remember, there's no emitter. So
Oh, okay. It's only coming in. So
It's
that's
only
why it's
coming
called
in.
basically, basically, right? Yeah.
And by the way,
Okay.
some people have said, like, I don't want to be, announcing to the aliens that I'm looking for them. No, you're just receiving. So you're totally stealth. Nobody knows you're doing this. Yeah, receive only.
I see. So, and would it be all this information be fed real time into some type of server?
Yeah. So how it works. So now let's say you have all these receivers all across the country, all picking up all these echoes from all sorts of things in the sky. That has to get combined in a kind of a pyramid server kind of style. So, there'd be a server local to several receivers that would combine them. And then that information would go to a second pyramid and part of the pyramid. And it would all get combined into like a national database that could be displayed, just like you can go to, FlightAware, and you can see all the airplanes flying over America. Same thing.
I have that app. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd see a map that's like, here's all the UFOs over America. So that's kind of the idea. And it does work. So one receiver, since it's an omnidirectional antenna and omnidirectional receiver, you only know a delay. So you can't really localize one of the points on a single receiver. It has to be mixed with, actually it takes 4 to get an exact position. So that's where the grid comes in, to make sure there's enough so that anything in the sky would be measured by 4 receivers. And if you work out those numbers, it's about a 30-kilometer grid mesh of receivers across the country, which is about 10,000 receivers. So that's where the numbers come from. But on the other hand, if you had 4 receivers in one city, that'd be enough to see anything that goes over that city, because they can see out 100 kilometers, which is way bigger than a city.
How could this work in some, and I'm getting a lot of questions also, even, I didn't even do that. I don't know how that happened, but I'm getting a lot of questions even from, Bill, who you talked to, before we went live. He's got a couple of questions too. So,
yeah.
All right, first of all, is this something that you're working to get? This has to be funded more, and I believe you're looking for a philanthropist or someone to help with this, because this is a major amount of money to get this thing rolling. Is that where it is at this point?
Yeah, I mean, just to let you know, so I'm very familiar with these kind of project developments. This is like a $6 million project. So what I'm talking about is the NRE, the non-recoverable engineering cost, to turn this into a consumer product with a sales department, shipping and receiving, and the infrastructure to support the customers and all that stuff, manufacturing, everything that goes into a consumer product, we're going to put together. And then that's about a 24-month development cycle where we do prototypes, we do some studies with universities, select universities work with us, until the end of 24 months, we have a product where you can then go on a website and click and buy this thing and put it, set it up in your house, and you plug the Ethernet cable, or you tell it the Wi-Fi address, right? And you're done. So that,
Let me just ask you this part of it, an idea. Say that you took 4 of these. Can you set up like a small part to begin with, just for testing, just so you can pitch it? Like, if, for instance, if you actually caught something that was anomalous and unexplainable and all that, then I think you could really pitch this thing to get, the funding, because if it shows that there could be a path forward, and then, can you imagine how that could work out? And could there ever be an aspect of being able to get an image or video or anything of what is being detected? I know that you're saying it can be, what did you say, 80 kilometers away or whatever, but is there a way that there could be some type of other evidence besides just this passive radar?
Let's see. Are you asking? I thought I heard two questions. One is, can you make a little mini version of this? And the second I thought I heard was, can it be combined with other instruments? Did I get that right?
Yeah, there is two questions. But I'm just trying to think, I'm thinking about this, the way the skeptic will look at this. They're always trying to, figure out, an answer that's not, obviously not like a UFO. And one of them would be, okay, well, we got this passive radar detection, we triangulated and we watched this thing, go like 10,000 miles an hour and make a right turn. That would be pretty, very, very convincing if you had something like that. But there also, well, there was no video of it. You know what I mean? There was no witnesses there. You get all those naysayers, and I'm just wondering if there was. So that was two questions. But do you ever foresee a time, like if this was built up, that there would be other added features for, say, cooperation?
Sure. I didn't even, there's a lot to this that I didn't even touch on, because so far we just talked about passive radar. This is actually like, I don't know if trifecta is too strong a word, but we foresee, what we're trying to build is three things in one. We want a human database, something like the National UFO Reporting Center or some other database where people call in and report what they've seen with their own eyes. Yeah. We want the passive radar that's detecting whatever objects in the sky. And the third thing is a UFO app. And the idea behind the UFO app is it's connected to the radar in a way where, we all know that there's all sorts of UFOs. I think there's all sorts of UFOs flying around that people never film. They say they witness something, but they don't pull out their camera.
Right.
Here you could have the radar could see something coming, 50 miles before it's going to get to your house. And it could send you an alert and said, run outside and point your phone up into the sky, to the southwest, because there's something on its way. So you could be ready with your phone, ready to record objects based on what the radar has predicted is going to come your way. And then, if you've ever had the stargazing apps, you know that your phone knows exactly where the camera's looking.
Yes.
So that information is available to be recorded with the video. So there's no reason that you can't take that IMU data, the inertial measurement unit that's on your phone, and attach it to the video, so that when researchers have your video, they not only see the dot in the sky, but they see how your phone is moving. And then if multiple people can see that at once with their apps, which they should be able to, because now we're going to give them advance notice to run outside, then you can triangulate. So that's a completely independent measurement of the same phenomena that the radar would be measuring. And plus, if you had an eyewitness, there would be eyewitnesses, but you might also have other eyewitnesses, or you could even have an abduction or something like that somebody phoned in that has a radar sighting over the top of it. So to me, the holy grail of a UFO report is that you have that app as an independent measurement of some weird motion in the sky from some object. Maybe you can even see the shape of it. You have the radar data of it, and you have eyewitness reporting of it. Let's give that to some scientific group and see if they can make any sense out of that.
Yeah, no, that's all great. And to the first part of the question, have you ever considered like a small set of, say, 4, or is it just so involved that you'd have to get into the software and the server and all that? I mean, would it be difficult to test with, say, 4 of them in a certain hotspot location or something?
Yeah, in fact, for the Galileo project, we set up 5. And then, and so we recorded data from 5 things, and then it came, all the data came to me, and there's like, hey, Mitch, no, do everything with it. Well, that's actually kind of a big job, and that's when I came up with this idea. Like, I think this should be a national project. I think it should have funding so that I can actually work on it without losing my day job, for no pay. So, it came down to kind of practicality. Yeah, it actually for me, it comes down to two things. One is practicality, because actually I would love to work on this. And I found that I have to be so careful to make sure I don't work on this, because it will totally consume me, and then I'll lose my day job. So I have to, it sucks me right in because I love it so much. So that's one thing. But the second thing is, I've already shown, actually, not only have I shown that I can detect those objects, but you can buy a radar. You can buy, there's 10 companies that make passive radars that will show you what's in the sky. The problem is they cost $2.5 million, $3 million, $4 million. So you're not going to have 10,000 of those around the country. That's not practical. And probably you can't even buy one because it's, a military thing that you can available to people. But they have them. You can see them on the internet. You can look up passive radar on the internet, and you'll see videos, some guy demoing the passive radar. You can see everything in the sky to 250 kilometers. So there's no doubt that this technology works. In fact, I based my first prototype off a paper that was written in 2005, almost 20 years before I started working on it. That was contemplating whether, it was done by NATO, contemplating whether they should change all the FAA, their version of FAA in Europe, over to passive radars. So, the people are taking it very seriously. It's a very mature technology. It's maybe another way to prove that it's valuable is to know that it's regulated by ITAR, so the International Trade in Arms Regulations. So you can't just if you're not careful, you can't just build one of these radars and get away and sell it without violating a law, because they're so valuable. They can be used for targeting and for war. So,
so you're talking about a major cost, but you have another idea for, this is going to be your dream here is for this to be more of a grassroots type of situation. Yeah. And so where can a price level go where someone can afford to have some plug and play type of situation?
Yeah, well, once we do what was called, I told you that non-recoverable engineering is like a $6 million kind of number, where we build this all out, build all the tooling, the molding, get the infrastructure all set up to sell, all that stuff. And then once it's for sale, it's like $500. So, if you can afford if we can find 10,000 people across the country that can afford $500 to answer the question of, are we alone? And I think we can, because I'm inundated, by the way, with people who want to buy it.
Yes, I've had someone already asked me.
Yeah,
through a text. Yeah, so that's really something. So we have a couple of questions. I know unfortunately, I have something extremely early in the morning, and we can't go longer than the regular time tonight. I mean, I'd love to talk but we've got less than 10 minutes left here. So maybe we can answer some of these questions here. Could plasma reflections be a reason for why some of these objects are being detected? I feel that USOs underwater would be more likely detected because of the loss of electrons.
Well, I mean, we get reflections off of any metal objects, anything that's conductive, or plasma, which is conductive. So we can see reflections off that stuff. We're not measuring emissions, so if that's not what we're measuring. And like you touched on this earlier, some people, maybe some of these things are stealth mode, and they block radiation. Who knows? But that's okay, because over the history of UFOs, plenty of UFOs have been seen on radar. So that's fine. People have told me, in fact, once I was presenting this to a group, and I said, I think we'll see a UFO every week if we have this set up. Because by the way, if you ever had followed the National UFO Reporting Center, I remember Peter Davenport back in the 90s said, hey, if you don't believe in UFOs, sit with me one night. And then, you can see him fly over Wyoming, and then it goes over to Nebraska. You can just watch the whole thing. And so, I said that to this group. I said, I think we'll see him like every week. We'll have a case that we could prove UFOs are real every week. And he said, some guy said, oh no, probably maybe once a month. And I go, okay, I'll take it. Once a month. That's fine.
How about one? Just one.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it was great meeting up. I met Peter Davenport. I'm sure you did too. You saw him there at the Contact in the Desert. That was really great to meet him there. Here's another question here is my understanding was that there are strict FCC guidelines on using passive RF radar. How does your program work with those restrictions?
Yeah, the restrictions are ITAR, the International Trade in Arms Regulations. And we just make sure that we're not within their jurisdiction by changing our parameters so that we're just out of their bounds. So we're fine. And we're receive only. So, you would even question why there's even any regulations that could affect it because they're my signals. But anyway.
Yeah. Another one here. If such passive radar array gets reflections from a drone swarm, how much information are they getting about the individual drones in that swarm?
Yeah, you always have this issue of whether there's always a range gate size issue. So you have a minimum resolution where you can define, what's one thing versus what's two things. And, as far as like, I'll tell you, any little swarm of drones that's near you, you're going to have a hard time, counting all the drones. And where this thing really excels is stuff in the atmosphere that's pretty far up. And that's where it's prime. That's where the sweet spot really is. But I mean, I would have loved to have these set up during all that New Jersey stuff. Because one thing, even if you can't count the drones, we could have seen where they were going. Where are they coming from? Where are they going to? Like,
that's a big question. Where'd they come from? Where did they go?
Yeah. If they go straight up into space, we'd see it. And the cool thing about passive radar, it could be raining, it could be snowing, it could be complete fog, it could be night, the dead of night. I mean, we always talk about lights in the sky only because we don't see the UFOs that aren't lit up. We only see the ones that are lit up. There could be UFOs flying over all the time that don't have self-illumination. This thing will see them.
There was someone I talked to one time that said they were basically laying on a blanket on their back, just looking up at a meteor shower. And all of a sudden they saw a triangular black stars, the shape of black stars being blacked out and a triangular moving over the sky, no lights. Right. I mean, that was remarkable. That would be really something else. Let's see if I'm going to catch all these questions. Here's one about tornadoes. This question's about tornadoes, probability and prediction. My remembered experience includes being warned by NHI about tornadoes 5 minutes later. Can you imagine a predictive AI that precise? I mean, we really haven't had much time to talk about AI, but would there be AI involved in any of this?
Well, to answer that question specifically, I mean, if we had a system that would reliably detect UFOs, because by the way, this would be so much more reliable than eyewitnesses because of what we were talking about, especially in severe weather. Like in severe weather, it's all full of cloud. There's clouds, there's hail, there's everything, wind blowing, and you're probably inside hiding, But if we had that data, we could make those correlations. And I'm not aware of any, I didn't hear that correlation between tornadoes and UFO sightings, so I'm not aware of that at all. But certainly this data would help and could go into somebody's database and they could figure out those statistics. And then as far as AI, of course, this is ripe to throw AI on to look for patterns, to look for different things. It's not required because the equations to do triangulation don't require AI. So that's not a prerequisite to this. But certainly like maybe flagging things that look weird, that could be an AI, alarms or whatever. But we're going to record all the data so that, if maybe you don't even know anything happened until 2 weeks later, someone says they saw something in the sky, you could go back 2 weeks ago and then look at the data there and see if there was a reflection that was overlooked.
Now, this antenna, would this be something like on a rooftop or something where they get a broad view of open space?
Yep. I mean, it'd be very much like a TV antenna, and I know that there's HOA rules nowadays, whatever, but all we need is 10,000 sites, right? And and 10,000 people who are able to put up a TV antenna, and maybe, or a TV antenna looking thing, and maybe it doesn't fit every single scenario. Maybe you have an apartment on the 10th floor of a 20-story building, and you can't really even get your antenna anywhere. So there's definitely a use case that makes sense here, but we're just going to do the best we can.
Yeah. I've had a lot of weird thoughts, in my mind over the years. But one of the things I was thinking one time, I was talking about this person that laid out on the grass and looked up at the sky, which I've done a lot. And whether it's a hot tub or whatever, I love looking up at the night sky.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always wondered, like, if you had a camera in one location looking right up wherever you're at for 100 years, I imagine you'd see amazing, amazing things. UFOs, and I saw a fireball one time that's was such an astonishing thing because it was round. I've explained this a couple of times, but it was just so weird. The fireball I saw was perfectly round. It was rotating. It had cracks. It looked like lava in the cracks and sparks flying out of it. I mean, the weirdest thing. This is in the 80s, and the weird things you see when you're outside. I mean, they have forever.
So when you talk about putting a camera up, it's a great idea, but there's a couple issues about it. One is you have a lot of video that you're never going to look through. So you definitely need some kind of automated system that's going to detect weird things. Yeah. And then it would be a great idea, but it's not as great as the radar. For one thing, if you just let's say you put 10 cameras pointing in 10 different directions on your roof, so you're getting like full sky coverage. Mm-hmm. Cameras can only see, if something is 10 kilometers away, it's a dot or invisible on a camera. That's kind of like the limit of a camera, unless it's super bright, but we don't know anything about, what if it's not super bright? And then, here, in contrast, the radar can see out 100 kilometers, and it also is measuring velocity at the same time. So there's a very big difference between a radar and a camera.
Sure. Yeah.
In fact, the likelihood, are we running out of time?
We are, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, okay.
We're right up against it. Yeah, go ahead. Get it. Yeah.
One, 30-second sentence or 10-second sentence.
Yeah.
The chance of seeing something in the sky is proportional to the volume you're seeing, the volume you're looking at. And the volume is the cube of the radius. So if you can see 10 kilometers, let's just normalize it and say that's a 1. If you could see 100 kilometers, that's like 10,000 times more volume, 10,000 more times of a chance that you're going to see something.
Makes a great point. Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. Really enjoyed talking. I wish you could have been longer, but I hope to have you back on, especially if you get this thing rolling. And if you do, I'd like to help out with that any way I can. So thanks so much.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right. SkyWatch. Can someone find you? SkyWatch.
Yeah. ascendantai./SkyWatch. Yeah. ascendantai.com/SkyWatch.
Very good. Okay. Take care.
Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye. All right, everyone. So we'll be back this Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern with Stacy Wright, and next week, as I mentioned, with Don Schmitt. Thanks so much. Remember to keep your eyes to the sky.